Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Mosser. That is one of my best friends, David Cahoon, and you're locked into another episode of the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast.
Let's go.
Let's go. This is season 2, episode 11, and officially our 24th episode overall of the show. Another step forward, another chapter in this thing that we've been building piece by piece. And tonight hits a little differently, I'd say, Dave, because this is our first episode since the 2026 NFL draft has wrapped up. And it's our first time sitting back on the couch after, what was without question the, biggest night in the history of the podcast, I would say.
Absolutely.
If you've been with us the past few months, you know how deep we've went into this draft cycle. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, hours of tapes, hours of dedication, hours of trying to understand not just, who these players are, but who they can become in the NFL. We've been living inside this class since season 2 kicked off, and all of that work led to last Thursday night, our first ever NFL draft special with the Inside Edge Network, a show we prepared for like it was a championship game. I'm not kidding. I put in over 250 hours in this. The first, literally the first round of the NFL draft. We poured 6 months of effort into this, a show that we'd hope people would, show up for, and then the numbers actually came in. David, originally, you and I thought we had 852 live viewers, which was incredible. But yeah. I just found out from Chad, that was our producer on the night. He saw 912 live viewers total.
Wow.
Live to watch the show that, didn't even exist a year ago. A show that started with just two guys, you and I, two mics and a belief
in our basements.
Yeah, right. Yeah, with a belief that, if we did this the right way, people would eventually find us, and, to put that in perspective, on a normal week, we average about 200 live viewers, another 400 or so catch the episode throughout the week. But that's usually our baseline, that's our rhythm. And then suddenly we're standing in front of an audience that, is 4 times bigger than anything we've ever done. It's like walking into an auditorium and realizing that every seat is filled. And then people are, standing in the back as well. It was validation. It was proof that, the work actually mattered to you guys. It was proof that, people believe in what we're building here. And I'm so proud of you, David, proud of the grind, proud of the participation. David matched me every along the way, step for step. I'm proud of the Inside Edge Network for giving us the platform, and I'm unbelievably grateful to my wife, Hallie, for holding on the fort with a newborn and 2 toddlers while I chased this thing with literally everything I had. And, I'm so grateful for Sarah as well, David's wife, for just giving him the time and opportunity to, to go along on this adventure with me. But now the draft is in the books, the dust is settled, and tonight we get to react. The fits, the surprises, the steals. I just had my coffee. The head scratchers, the fantasy implications of these draft picks, all of it. The next few episodes is where we take everything we saw, everything we studied, everything we predicted, and stack it up against what actually happened in the draft. So sit back and get comfortable, settle into your spot on the couch, grab whatever you're drinking tonight, and let's talk about the 2026 NFL draft.
Let's do it. And dude, I gotta say, I'm so proud of you too. We've been really grinding to try and get this show, I guess, up on its feet. And last week was really a huge point for us. And I just got to say, I'm proud of you for all the hard work you've put into this.
Thank you, buddy.
And I'm proud of all the viewers too, because having interest in 2 guys talking about fantasy football during April is not really something that's popular this time of year. And so, yeah, thank you all so much for coming out and listening to us. And
we got to keep it up every week though, baby.
Yes,
every week
please.
You guys gonna watch. We bring the gas, we bring the facts, we bring the fun, and
the hot takes.
David brings some hot takes. I bring educated takes,
but yeah, I'm going to do this every week though, because it's just been helping us grow. But if you are following us on any social media accounts, please go and share our stuff. And if you're not following, go ahead and give us a follow. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on X, Facebook. Pretty much everywhere that we're trying to be. So Instagram, TikTok, all those places, please go ahead and follow us. And then if you're listening to us on the podcast version, go ahead and subscribe to us, turn on automatic downloads, give us a 5-star review or a 2-star, even if you don't like us.
No, 5-star. Come on. This is gold. This is gold. You're going to win championships because of us.
Allegedly,
that's true.
Hopefully. Very true. But yeah, go ahead and give us a subscribe and follow us, because you're not going to want to miss all this great content that we got coming down the pike during the summer and leading up to the NFL season.
Exactly. Also, real quick, before we get rolling tonight, I want to take a moment to highlight something that means a lot to my family and I've talked about this a lot, but I'm going to continue to hammer it down. Many of you already know this, but my son James, my 4-year-old, nature fanatic, is competing in the Ranger Rick Junior Ranger competition. This whole program is designed to spotlight kids who genuinely love the outdoors, kids who explore, who ask questions, who want to understand what the world is like around them, and that's James absolutely to his core. He's the kid who's wakes up talking about habitats, spends a day pointing out birds and insects, and ends the night explaining migration patterns like he's narrated in his own documentary. Yesterday we went on a hike and it was so much fun doing. I'm an outdoors guy, so I got my little buddies with me. It's a lot of fun. But right now he is officially in the top 10, and tonight, well, I guess we're pre-recording, so. Nonetheless, hopefully he's in the top 5. But tonight, so as you're watching this right now, he will hopefully be in the top 5. The top 5 ends tonight on Wednesday night. And only 5 kids make it on to the next round, and James is currently sitting at 3rd. So we want to continue to hammer those in. He still needs support, and we're really, really grateful for all the support so far, and we just want to continue that. Tonight is also double vote night, but regardless, I expect him to be in the top 5, and this QR code right here is how you can vote for James. You can also go on my Twitter at DynastyCLE. I will make sure to retweet this at the time that this goes live so that we make sure that James can get his votes. So grateful again. Please just, if you're seeing this, please just, screenshot or, whatever you do with the QR code, scan it, I guess that's the right word, and vote for my son, James, or just go again to my Twitter at DynastyCLE. I'll retweet it right now. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. Ali Rose.
No, yeah, you're good. But yeah, please go vote for James. He's literally one of the sweetest kids I've ever met, and such a good person that would love to be a part of the Junior Ranger Rick competitions.
Thanks,
so yeah, we have a lot of new sponsors here at the Inside Edge Network. That we are so excited about because we are growing very, very fast. So one of those sponsors is Ali Rose Fragrances. We are sponsored today by Ali Rose Fragrances. Discover Ali Rose's collection of handcrafted candles and body mists that are made with clean, minimal ingredients. Every product is thoughtfully created in small batches, free from harmful toxins, for mindful, everyday indulgence. Head over to AliRoseFragrances.com right now to order and use a special promo code InsideEdge20 to receive a special discount. Again, that is InsideEdge20 at AliRoseFragrances.com to get a special discount today.
Yeah, that's capital I, capital E there, guys. Also, we're brought to you by Master Moments Photography. We are a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland who specialize in providing the best wedding photos in Northeast Ohio. Check out our website at MossorMomentsPhotography.com. That's MOSSOR, momentsphotography.com, and that's right there on your screen. David, how you doing, brother?
Dude,
draft's over.
Good.
Man.
The draft was wild, though. That was honestly so much fun. Like, just
so much
sitting there talking with you, and it was the best way for me to end a long day at work. Just to hang out with you and just talk draft and react to Ty Simpson getting drafted to pick 13.
Tatum Proctor, Carnell Tate,
a
bunch of them, man. That was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah. So, how are you?
Doing good, man. I'm tired. The Sunday Sports Show has been postponed until the NFL season. So that will relieve a little bit of time off my plate. I do about 20 hours of prep a week just for that. Yeah. So that's nice to have off my plate. Nobody wants to hear you talk about the NFL right now anyway, especially when the draft is over. So It's a nice break. We'll see if I go back. I'm not sure yet. I love Chad and TK like brothers, but it was a lot. So, and then I'm also trying to build stuff here with, the Commissioner's Couch and Voice of the Land as well. My own project. So we'll see what happens in the future. I'm not sure. It's up, in God's hands. But, other than that, the whole family's sick. I've been finding a ton of morel mushrooms. I'm super proud about that. Found my biggest one in my career yesterday. It was a monster.
You sent me that picture. That was huge.
It was this.
Did you, have you taken the boys to go find mushrooms yet?
No. What? No.
Why not?
Listen, all right. When I go out to find mushrooms, I am not necessarily legally doing it.
Oh, gotcha.
It's not my property. It's usually a
Metro
Park State Park, or I don't know where those lines are. I could be trespassing at some points. And I just don't necessarily think I should bring my toddlers with me, especially when they're loud. And a mushroom. Yeah, no, here comes a bullet. No thanks. Like I'm good. Like
that's why you haven't taken me either. A mushroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
No, nonetheless, eventually I'll take them, but it's it's a lot of fun. So
yeah,
I found over 100 so far, bro. Pumped.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting because I still need to try some. So we are in our post-draft series now. We just finished our draft series last week with the actual NFL draft happening. And now we are at the point where we're going to break it all down for you. So every landing spot, every veteran that's going to be impacted by incoming rookies, every sort of change to the offense from new coaches to new offensive coordinators, we're going to break it down for you over the next coming weeks. And this is our first kind of episode of doing that. And so really excited about it. This week's going to be really fun because we're just focusing on the draft and landing spots, and then just some rapid fire questions, fantasy relevancy, for who might be better choices to target in dynasty drafts and redrafts, keeper leagues, best ball, all of that. And so tune in, strap on in, sit down, relax. It's going to be great. So,
yes, sir.
All right. Well, are you ready, Moss?
Yeah. All right. Well, so now that we settled in the dust is settled, like I said, it's time to, what David said, do everything for what every football fan, secretly loves more than anything else, is hand out some judgment. So, and we're gonna judge some players here, draft some draft picks, and we're going to be talking about some, front offices that nailed value, filled needs, and built real long-term stability, and talk about ones that, maybe reached, panicked, and zigged while they should have zagged and somehow managed to walk away with more questions than answers. Some of these teams made themselves contenders, and some of them made themselves punchlines. And all of them gave us plenty to talk about. I'm ready, dude. Let's dive in. Let's talk about who crushed this draft and who absolutely did not.
Let's do it. All right. So we're going to start with the big picture. Let's talk through who are some of your winners from the draft, just teams in general. Who do you think had a good draft, landed some good value for draft picks? We'll start with that. Who were the positives?
All right. First one, this is your first two, but we're fans, but it's the Cleveland Browns, clearly.
I mean, this should be a common sense one. Like, they literally crushed it out of the park.
The last 2 years, too,
Yeah.
A complete top to bottom roster upgrade, I say. When you look at what Cleveland did, it feels like the front office that finally understands the assignment. They didn't chase any splashes, they didn't force any needs. They stacked high floor players at premium positions and walked away with one of the most balanced classes in the league. They rebuilt the offensive line with real building blocks. Spencer Fano, Austin Barber, they gave them 2 long-term starters to fit exactly what this offense wants to be, which is physical, athletic, and reliable. They doubled down at receiver with Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Both of them have different skill sets as well. Concepcion gives them, the dynamic after the catch weapon they've been missing, and Boston gives them the size, body control, and a true boundary presence now. Those two together changed the shape of the passing game. Then they added EMW, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, which I think was an absolute just amazing pick. Parker Brailsford,
the steal of the draft, really.
Probably. Parker Brailsford was my top center. He's a plug and play center, a reliable LB, special teams guy and rotational player. Joe Royer, who I think is going to be fantastic in this offense, and also in the receiving game. I think he's low-key got some sleeper value. And then my favorite player in this draft, Taylor flipping Green, bro.
Pounding the table for him.
I freaking love Taylor Green. I think he might be the starter in Cleveland for the future.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I'm so excited, man. I'm and then finish it off with a solid, blocking tight end / fullback. I think this is the kind of class that doesn't just help you this year or next year. It stabilizes your roster for the next 4 or 5 seasons. I think it's just out of the park home run for the Browns.
Yeah, no, I agree. They were my number 1 ranked draft winners from this past weekend as well. Yeah. Like you talked about how they stacked from last year's draft class, which was a home run, to this year's. On paper, this draft class looks better than last year's draft class did. We had some questions right after the draft about they picked Carson Schlesinger in the 2nd round.
I didn't have that question. I was
turned into an absolute rookie of the year type of a player.
I think my only questions from last year were the double in positions, double running backs, double quarterbacks. If he wouldn't have done that, maybe he would have came away with a different position. Maybe I have a different narrative. But those first 4 picks, like you said, with Mason Graham, Harold Fannin Jr., Carson Schlesinger, and then Quinton Junkins, not in that order, obviously, home run. So stack those 2 drafts together. Woo!
Yeah, but I think AB kind of followed a similar path this year where he also double stacked on the offensive tackles, double stacked on the wide receivers.
That's a little different though, because I mean, offensive tackle, wide receiver, those are all positions of need, and we need the value of just depth. Running back, you don't necessarily. That's more of a Dylan Sampson was a commodity pick more than anything else.
True.
So,
yeah.
Same thing with Shedeur, but the value was there, obviously.
Absolutely, yes. All right. Well, my next team that I thought also had a really good draft would be the New York Giants, a team that moved around heading up into the draft right before it. Ended up trading away a big piece on their defense, but got the number 10 overall pick, and got some really good value from both of their first-round picks and traded up to get a third first-round pick. I thought that they had a really, really good draft. They got a lot of I think, ammo for being competitive this year and made it really like, hey, we're going to try and be competitive. Jackson Dart, it's all on you now. And so I really liked what they did. They got a lot of support for him. And made really good moves, I thought. So,
yeah, I mean, hold on, I'm not even on the screen. Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Okay. Hi. Hello. All right. So, I mean, they got Francis Mauigoa, who is my top offensive tackle in this draft, my top offensive lineman. Right tackle, that's, great. Arvell Reese, who is a freak. Colton Hood, who was a top 5 corner for me. Malachi Fields, who I think steps in as a wide receiver, too, immediately behind Malik Neighbors. J.C. Davis was my lowest ranked offensive lineman in the entire draft, but that's okay. They took him in round 6, pick 192. Other than that, was a great draft. I love what the Giants did. I think they'll be a contending team this year. So
yeah, they should be, in all honesty.
It just depends on the health of, obviously, Dart continuing to stay healthy, and then how Scadaboo ends up, and then Malik Neighbors, his injury as well. So if all those come back okay, then they might be pretty well set going into 2026 season.
Yeah. All right. Who was your other winner that you had?
I had a couple. I had plenty. I can talk about hundreds, David. No.
Okay.
New Orleans Saints. I really like New Orleans Saints draft. They walked in this draft needing playmakers, trench help, defensive depth, and they walked out with all 3 and didn't have to reach to do it. Jordan Tyson gives them a legitimate wide receiver 1 candidate. Yeah, I understand they have Chris Olave. I understand he was the 7th ranked fantasy receiver last year. I just don't think he's necessarily a wide receiver 1. He's an incredible wide receiver 2 with weekly wide receiver 1 upside. Tyson
like T. Higgins is for Cincinnati. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Tyson, he's explosive. He's sudden. He gives that offensive vertical element that they've been missing. They got stronger in the middle of the defense. Christian Miller is powerful interior presence. I loved him. He was my 3rd ranked defensive tackle. They got Oscar Delp, one of David's favorite tackles. Absolutely loves him. Tight end. Tight end out of Georgia. Gives them a true every down, option, not just a pass catcher, not just a blocker, but someone who can do both. They got Jeremiah Wright and Bryce Lance. David loved. They got Barium Brown, David.
Your guy, sleeper.
Listen, my sleeper. Here's my 5th ranked receiver in this NFL draft. Okay. I know. Listen, I'm going out based off NFL projection, based off traits, not necessarily where they get drafted. That's why, but nonetheless, I love Barry and Brown. And then they got Lorenzo Styles, who just in the combine ran a 4.3 40 as a nickel. So great draft for the Saints.
Yeah, I agree. That was a really good one. My last team that I have here for my winners for the draft would be the Oakland Raiders. I feel like this one is kind of like, okay, congrats, you got your new franchise quarterback. But I feel like they also did a little bit more than that too. They came back around, got some good defensive players. I was hoping that they would kind of get an offensive weapon for their new quarterback to kind of pair with Bowers in the passing game and Genty. They didn't really get that as a high priority, but that's okay. I still think that this offense is going to be really productive. Brock Bowers is going to feast. We'll talk more about him, I'm sure, at another date. But I think the Oakland Raiders, I think if you land your franchise quarterback, which it looks like they did.
Who?
Fernando Mendoza.
You said the Oakland who?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Las Vegas Raiders. I keep doing it. So yeah, I think that was a really good draft if it turns out the way that they think it will.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, obviously Mendoza wasn't my top prospect. He's I checked. He's my 52nd, not 50th. I said that over the draft. He's my 50th. He's my 52nd overall prospect, but that still context matters. He's obviously a quarterback. He's top one in this draft. And, a lot of it's pretty much consensus that he deserved the top spot, even though he's not the top player. I get that. That's great. I think Brock Bowers is going to benefit. Genty's going to benefit. I don't necessarily think that they're close yet. I still think they need help on that offensive line. Defense needs a little help, but they're getting better. I like the the pieces they're putting together. And if Mendoza works out, they got a quarterback, a tight end, and a running back.
And
pretty
good wide receiver class looks pretty good.
So if they don't do that great, Jeremiah Smith jumps on that team, and then oh my gosh, or Ryan Williams or Cam Coleman, or let's get into 2027 rookies, David. I'm ready. I don't need a break. Screw it. I'm going. No.
Who rests around here?
Not me. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
All right, give us your last team that you.
I got two more. I don't know which one to do. You pick.
Flip a coin.
One or two.
Two.
All right. The Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, sadly, I agree with you.
I think the Ravens have a type. They draft tough, physical, high motor players who fit their culture, and once again, they walked out of this class with the prospects that feel like it was built in their image. They got Vega Leon, who is my top guard. He's going to be their one of their guards for the next 10 years. He's nasty. He's powerful. He's built for AFC North football. I loved Vega Leon. I think that was a great pick by them. Followed it with Zion Young. I'm not as high on him, but he's perfectly for what they want in their pass rush rotation. He's long, he's explosive. He gives them another, developmental edge presence. They added Jacoby Lane. I have Jacoby Lane as my 4th overall receiver. I love Jacoby Lane. I think that's a great pickup. Hi, Sarah. We're on a podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm listening.
I know. And then they got Elijah Surratt as well. Gave them 2 big body targets who win through contact. That's
I was planning on talking about Surratt. So
fun. We can. Then they got 2 more tight ends. And then they got late round depths with a bunch of other players. I think this is the class that strengthens their identity and gives them multiple players who can contribute early. My last team was the Eagles as well. So
yeah, I like what the Eagles did too. Yeah, I agree with you. Sadly, the Baltimore Ravens were a really good drafter this year. I feel like every year they always do never the star of the draft, but every year they're just consistently drafting good.
I think what they do is they don't really necessarily go for need. They just go for who is best available. That's how they pull out. That's what the Eagles do too every year. That's why they get Mekhi Lemon. That's why they get Vega Leon. That's why they get all these players. And then they're, a pinnacle on their team for the next 10 years because so I think that's what Andrew Berry's doing a little bit too. I think he did obviously draft for need a little bit with Spencer Fano. I get it though, especially with Caleb Downs there on the board. I'll forever be mad about that. But Emmanuel McNeil-Warren obviously, gives that a little bit more,
helps soften the blow.
Exactly. Yeah. But if I was there at 9, I would have taken Caleb Downs. Nonetheless, whatever. Let's get into our biggest losers for the 2026 draft, David. You can go ahead and give me your first one.
Okay, so the first one is another AFC North team, and that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's my number one. Everyone's.
Yeah, so this team during the draft was really bad. They literally called a prospect before they were even on the clock saying, hey, we're going to take you. Congratulations on being a Pittsburgh Steeler. Then their in-state rivals jump up in front of them in the draft, take the player they're trying to take, Mekhi Lemon, and they scramble and take a project of an offensive tackle who I actually
think that call on Mekhi Lemon is also against NFL rules, so they might.
I believe so.
So that's awesome as well.
Yes. So they were just, I think, from the start when it was their turn, lost and didn't know what to do and kind of panicked. They kind of crapped the bed, to put it lightly. From there, they just kind of I felt like didn't know what to do. They reached for some other players that were on their boards, never feel like they actually got good value for some of the players that they picked, and just kind of seemed to go off the haywire. And really, I felt like drafted players that weren't typical Pittsburgh Steeler players. Like you talked about how the Ravens draft for their like style of play, their tough grittiness. Pittsburgh Steelers have done that historically. And I feel like this past year in this draft, they didn't do that. Yeah. So I feel like they're kind of at an identity loss right now in their team, in their moment, in their growth. Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back? Nobody knows, but I feel like they're having a really bad offseason, and I would not be surprised to see them do really bad this upcoming year.
Yeah, Steelers are my number one as well. Like you said, their first overall pick in the first round, didn't match their timeline. Max Ian Anchor, I don't know how to say his name, whatever. He's a trait swing guy. He's long, he's athletic, he's raw. But Pittsburgh already has 2 young tackles, and they needed an impact player, not another long-term experiment, especially at a position that they relatively are not great at. I don't think Broderick Jones is good, but nonetheless, they have young bodies.
Not a huge need, yeah.
Right, exactly. They spent premium picks on depth instead of different makers, and that's the biggest thing. Jeremy Bernard, I feel like they just panic drafted him because they lost out on Mekhi Lemon. He's a fine player, but he doesn't change that offense at all. Dylan Everett, solid corner, but he's not a cornerback 1. I like Jennings Dunker. But right now he's probably a rotational interior lineman with beautiful, fantastic hair that I'm gonna have to hate now for some reason. These are all nice to have players, but they're not necessarily a fix the roster type of player, And then they didn't add a single player who elevated the ceiling of the team. I feel like this class feels like a collection of backups and long-term bets for the Steelers, not a group that helps Pittsburgh escape the middle of the AFC. They needed clarity and they drafted confusion, and that's never a good mix-up. So
yeah, I agree. They felt very confused all night. So my next team that I've got also felt very confused and also felt like I don't know what I'm doing. That would be the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay, they're my number 3.
Yeah, I feel like lately they've not been drafting well, to put it bluntly. They've been having some needs that they need to address, and then they're just not really addressing it in ways that the fans really think they should. Might be the best way to put it. They reach for a wide receiver in the second round, right?
What a reach! Oh my god!
They could have had in the third round.
Could have had in the 5th round.
Yeah. I don't mind the player. I think he's got potential, but it felt like a huge reach to me.
Jonathan Mingo,
that's the first pick of the draft, and so I don't know. I felt like from the get-go they were a little bit lost and a little bit unsure of what to do and how to make out what the board was falling like, and they just kind of stuck to what they wanted. And so seemed a little weird to me, but I don't know. We'll see how it pans out, I guess. But I felt leaving their draft feeling like, I'm unsure of who's going to be playing where and how valuable some players are going to be moving forward.
Yeah. Like you said, I mean, Stribling, what a huge reach.
Yeah.
I guess he's a talented athlete, but the 49ers already have a deep receiver room, and taking him at 33 far earlier than expected. I think absolutely ignoring, more pressing needs was a fail on them. They doubled down on reaches. Romello Height and Kalen Black. I guess they're fine prospects, but both were taken well ahead of most teams had them graded. When you're a contender, you can't afford to miss on day 2 like that as well. They didn't address any offensive line, especially early. Trent Williams is nearing the end, and the depth behind him is thin. They didn't fix their defensive depth either. Last season, their defense collapsed.
Literally fell
absolutely apart. Driven by injuries. This draft didn't, meaningfully protect them from what that happening again, and that's a little scary. So I absolutely agree. They were number 3. My number 2 was the Miami Dolphins.
I had them as my number 4. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 13 picks total, 13 swings, and somehow Miami walked away without addressing the one thing everyone in the league knew that they needed, which was higher end wide receiver help. A lot of people expected them to go after Mekhi Lemon, and it just didn't happen. I do kind of like the receivers that they got, but there's questions, of course.
Absolutely.
They avoided their biggest need. Obviously, they traded away elite receiver talent and replaced it with mid-round dart throws. Caleb Douglas dart throw. Chris Bell is the guy who I actually really like, but he's coming off an ACL injury late in the season last year. Kevin Coleman Jr., again, interesting, but none of them are necessarily needle movers right now. The first round strategy didn't match their roster reality in my opinion. They drafted volume instead of value. Too many maybe players compared to definitely players. I do like Jacob Rodriguez, but Trey Moore, Kyle Lewis, all high effort defenders, but none of them changed the identity of the defense. And I feel like just Miami, I don't know, they needed clarity at receiver, they needed structure on defense, and they drafted around the problem instead of solving it like head on early in the draft, I would say.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
I do like Chris Bell in the potential.
Same.
It's questions until we see what hit that, that healing from the injuries like. So
yeah, the potential is definitely there, and the opportunity is also there for him because there's nobody else in the room. Mm-hmm. So I like that too, and we'll talk more about him, I'm sure, later. But yeah, I agree with you. The Dolphins felt like they really were like, hey, we have so many holes, we're just going to draft for volume, as you said, and draft for quantity over quality, and see what sticks. And I guess that's a strategy. I personally don't like that one as much, but to each their own. My last team that I had that was a loser for the draft would be the LA Rams. To a certain extent, I get what they were doing, trying to do some succession planning for the future.
Good show.
Succession is a great show. But I at some point, though, I think you've got to take a hard look in the mirror and also realize we're trying to win now. What's going to be the most helpful thing to help us win right now is not a quarterback 2, quarterback 3. That's a developmental project for starting 3 years down the road. It's more so bolstering that defense, bolstering that offensive line, and helping you weather the storm of a 18-week season so you can be healthy come the playoffs. Yeah. And I feel like the Rams just lost track of that and really just kind of didn't do well at all in this draft. So,
and for a team that never, ever, ever, ever drafts in the first round, you do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It almost gives like slight PTSD of what the Falcons did a few years ago with
Penix,
the lefty Michael Penix. Yes. Yeah. They're like, oh, we're never going to be drafting this high again. So we got to take our guy. 2 years later, you're drafting the same value again. So yeah, it just felt like a huge reach and a huge blunder. The coach, Sean McVay, didn't seem like he liked the pick.
He's so pissed, dude.
He was pissed. He was like, so much. Don't worry, you're going to be battling with Stetson Bennett. It's like,
woo.
Yeah. So I to a certain extent, I get the idea of succession planning.
But you don't do that in a draft with the shitty quarterbacks. You do it next year.
Exactly.
Like dumb. All right, my last team for the losers is the Minnesota Vikings. I think this is a draft defined by more of a first round misfire. I think their entire draft was overshadowed by taking Caleb Banks at 18. Not necessarily because he's a bad player, but because of the value, I think, and also his injury history. The roster needs all pointed to a different direction and not defensive tackle. I think Banks is, a powerful, massive interior defender, but he is widely viewed as a mid-round player with, major medical red flags.
Yep.
Minnesota had a glaring hole at safety and, passed on multiple players that, fit their scheme perfectly. I did not understand the pick at all. Then they doubled down on the defensive line instead of, diversifying. They got Dominique Orange, another interior defender, 2 defensive tackles in the first, 3 rounds for a team that needed help at safety, corner, and center. Doesn't make sense. They got linebacker, they got another offensive tackle. I just really just do not like this draft at all. I just don't think they got better. They could have addressed running back a little earlier.
Yep.
That's a major need of theirs, but overall, I just think they pretty much got stagnant. I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. And it almost feels like they were trying to do their best player available with their draft board, but their draft board did not line up with
was the Temu board.
So yeah, it was a little bit head scratching.
Sure.
But I mean, maybe it'll work out for them. Maybe it won't. We'll see, I guess. But
yeah, hindsight's 2020.
It always is. All right, so we got another ad to play here for you all because the Inside Edge Network is growing rapidly. So here we go, a ad for Fanatics. Hey everyone, this is David from the Commissioner's Couch podcast. Fantasy football fans, you found the #1 destination for all the officially licensed football gear you will need this NFL season. The NFL Shop from Fanatics.com features sportswear and accessories from brands like Nike and New Era, as well as NFL coolers, so you can head to the tailgate repping your team. If you're looking to add to your collection of tailgate gear, you need to check out our grilling items and coolers. With official player jerseys, polos, and hats, we've got enough gear to keep you repping your favorite NFL team throughout the whole season. Go to Fanatics.com by using the QR code on the screen right now to celebrate your fantasy football teams. Again, that's Fanatics.com, or use the QR code on the screen to buy all the gear you need to rep your team. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah, again, that is Fanatics.com. You can scan this QR code as well if you are interested in purchasing anything as well. We do not have a code for you to use for a discount, but please go ahead and use this link to purchase any sports needs that you have.
You can also go on our Twitter at InsideEdgeNet, and there'll be the code there as well.
Yep.
All right, Dave, let's shift some gears and talk fantasy football, right?
Finally.
Because now the draft is settled, and we finally get to do one of my favorite things about this, the offseason, figure out which rookies landed in the situations that actually matter and which ones absolutely got buried by their new teams. Yep. Every single year, what were we saying?
No, I was just saying, let's go.
Every single year, the draft, gives us two very different types of outcomes. On one side, you've got the rookies who walk into a perfect setup, wide open depth charts, creative play callers, quarterbacks who can actually get them the ball, and clear path to touches from day one. Those are the guys who become instant fantasy starters, league winners, and the players we look back in December wondering how the rest of our leagues let them fall to us, And then there's the other side, of course, the rookies who had the talent, had the profile, had the upside, and then landed in a spot that makes you want to close your laptop and walk into the ocean. Crowded backfields, low volume offenses, quarterbacks who can't support multiple weapons, coaching staffs that don't know what to do with them. These are the guys who go from potential breakout to, maybe I'll stash them and pray in about 30 seconds. So tonight we're breaking down both ends of that spectrum. We're going to be talking about the rookies who hit the jackpot, the players who stepped into opportunity, into volume and to fantasy relevance the moment their name was called on draft night. And then we're going to be talking about the rookies who got the short end of the stick, the ones whose talent might be real, but whose landing spot, puts a ceiling on everything we've hoped they could be. Some of these guys are walking into immediate roles. Some of them are walking into brick walls. And, all of them are going to shape how we draft in 2026 for these, rookie drafts and just drafts in general. Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the best rookie landing spots. Let's talk about the worst rookie landing spots. And let's figure out who is actually going to matter for your fantasy teams this season.
Yes, and we're going to try and break it down too between redraft leagues, dynasty leagues, best ball leagues, and see which ones are better for which landing spots. So
I did not do that, but I will try my best.
Sorry. Let's jump in. We're going to start with the best landing spots that we saw from this last draft. Would you like to go first?
You go ahead, buddy.
Okay, so the first person that I've got on my list might be a little bit of a hot take, but that's what I'm here for. So my first person is Kenyon Sadiq, tight end for the New York Jets. He was picked really high in the draft. He was the second overall pick for the Jets out of their two of their three first round picks. And I think he's going to be somebody who is going to emerge as a tight end weapon for them in that offense. You have, other weapons on that team. You've got Garrett Wilson at wide receiver. You've got the running back, Breece Hall, and they drafted another wide receiver that we'll talk about later. But I think he's going to be somebody who's going to be a focal point for that offense.
Yeah, Mason Taylor.
Mason Taylor is, I think, going to be buried and become a very block-heavy tight end moving forward. I don't know. I like the landing spot here. I think that team has never really had a weapon at the tight end position, and now they have a huge weapon. He can be a huge red zone target for them, a huge person that can catch tight end screens and make big plays out of it. He's athletic enough that he can just create big plays out of very small open space that are quick design passes for him. So I really like it. I think it could be a really good potential, and he could be a somewhat of a PPR option since there's nobody else on that team besides Garrett Wilson in the passing game. And so I think he could be a really, really good weapon to have especially in dynasty leagues, as that team continues to grow, as that team looks to add more to that offense next year, potentially at the QB position. But you have Geno Smith this year. He's not going to be a huge issue for the tight ends, and I think specifically because he's just going to target them a lot and not be afraid to throw them the ball. So I like Kenyon Sadiq. I like his landing spot, but we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens. All right, Kenyon Sadiq, David's best rookie landing spot, number one.
Number one
For me. These are not in order, just what I like.
Sure.
I like Antonio Williams' landing spot with the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
When you look at Washington's roster, it's pretty obvious that, why they drafted Antonio Williams and why he landed in one of the cleanest fantasy situations, I think, in the entire class. Outside of Terry McLaurin, this receiver room is hanging on by duct tape and hope, I would say, even if they actually swing a deal for Brandon Ayuk, which are rumors that he wants to go to Washington if he is let go or, the 49ers want to trade him. That doesn't necessarily change the fact that this offense desperately needed somebody who can get open, who can stay on schedule, and actually be where the quarterback expects him to be. And I think that's Antonio Williams to a T. He's not the wow athlete of the class, but he's the kind of receiver coaches trust immediately. He's got sharp routes, steady hands, and the ability to work the middle of the field without blinking. In this new offense under David Blau, I expect Washington to live in 11 personnel, which means Antonio Williams is going to be on the field early and often. Obviously with Jaden Daniels running the show, there's going to be plenty of volume underneath and in the intermediate areas, and that's where he shines. The depth chart behind McLaurin is wide open. Luke McCaffrey, Treylon Burks, Diami Brown, Van Jefferson, all fine players. Oh, they all suck. Other than they all suck. Sorry,
they're veterans that provide a specific skill set, but they aren't necessarily going to threaten that wide receiver team.
Yeah, they're not roadblocks, Yes. And I think that's the important thing here. I think he has a real chance to walk in to 6 to 7 targets per game right out of the gate, especially from the slot where I think this offense just lost 2 major contributors. I think he's one of my favorite redraft sleepers because the path to relevance is clear. It's probably as clear as it gets for any rookie right now. Like I said, he's not one of the top receivers, but his situation is amazing, and the role that he will play in the offense, I think, will be amazing as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a great sleeper. I was going to talk about him later, but I'm not going to now. But yeah, I agree. It's a great landing spot and a great offense too. That's going to score a lot of points. And so I think that's kind of a big thing that I'm looking for specifically when it comes to landing spot is how is that offense projected to score a lot of points? Yeah. And that's a good one right there. And so I like that pick a lot. So my next number one, or I guess best landing spot would be Makai Lemon, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. The big question mark and the only question mark is he going to be wide receiver 1? I think he will be. He's that talented. He's that much of a monster when it comes to demanding targets because he just creates so much separation. And he's just a bowling ball with his hands once he gets a ball in his hands. I think he's going to be somebody that can really demand a lot of targets and become a target monster for Jalen Hurts moving forward. Not to say that I don't think Devonta Smith will be fantasy relevant next year either, but in redraft leagues, best ball leagues specifically, I think Makai Lemon is somebody that you need to target because that offense is trying to become dynamic again and explosive again, and Makai Lemon's going to be a huge part of that.
Yeah, good pick.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I'll go this guy.
Yeah, do it.
Why not? All right. So Chris Bell, Miami Dolphins. Okay.
Yes, I have him on my list too.
Okay.
Hit it.
I know we talked about him and we don't necessarily like the draft from the Miami Dolphins, but he has a clear path to be a wide receiver 1 for a team that needs a wide receiver 1. Yep. It's one of those landing spots where the long-term upside is absolutely enormous in my opinion. But you have to be patient. He's coming off that ACL tear, like I said, late into the season last year for Louisville. So the early part of his rookie year is going to be about obviously getting healthy, learning the system and getting his legs back under him,
Yeah.
But once he's ready, I think Miami is the perfect place for him. This wide receiver room is begging for someone with Bell's profile, a physical outside target who can win vertically, beat press, and can turn simple throws into explosive plays. Miami has bodies at receiver, but they don't have anyone with Bell's combination of size, burst and run after catch ability. And in an offense is going to lean heavily on, play action with Malik Willis. Bell's skill set fits like a glove, I think, in Miami. He's a runaway player. Give that dude space, let him build speed, and he can flip the field in a heartbeat. Obviously, if he's healthy, but if you're playing the long game, I think Chris Bell is exactly the type of rookie who can disappear in September and then win you weeks in November and December. So
yep. No, I agree 100% on that. I think for when it comes to redraft, and this was what I was going to say about Chris Bell, maybe wait to get him in a waiver wire, like after their bye week,
or whatever. Last pick or second to last pick,
Yeah, even that too, and let him sit on your IR to start the year. But when it comes to Dynasty specifically, he's somebody that I'm not afraid to reach on because of that wide open wide receiver room.
And he gets stashed in your taxi squad until he comes back, and then usually your league has a certain set amount of games he has to play until he has to be activated to your roster. So it's a low risk, high reward. Especially if you get him late second round, early third round. I've seen him go early second because a lot of people see the value here. So it just depends. So
absolutely. And then I also think for best ball too, he's somebody that you can target late.
Absolutely,
to help you push through to get through those playoffs and into that championship of that best ball format. And so if you're looking for like underdog or any other format that you play best ball on, he's somebody that I would target with one of those last 2 to 3 round picks.
Yep.
So I think that's a great one, Moss. So
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. So the next one I've got is somebody who I think you and I both were like, yeah, we like him coming into the draft, but we don't necessarily love him, and that would be Jadarian Price.
I did not like him.
See, that's what I thought you said.
Why were running back 11 drafted in the first round?
He was, I think, my running back 3 or 4. I can't remember, but he was in my top 5.
Sure.
But I mean, running back that got drafted in the first round. Somebody who I think is going to be the only running back on that team moving forward, and so the opportunity is there, which is what I like about this landing spot. The player himself, I think, still has some room to grow. Might be more of a pass catcher more so than a natural runner.
What?
You think so?
He got like 19 total passes in college. What are you talking about?
Oh, maybe I'm getting him mixed up with somebody else then.
No, it's all right. No, Jeremiah Love was the guy who caught all the passes. Nonetheless,
you're right. That's what it was. But somebody who just has a lot of opportunity, and so I like that as a landing spot for him. So
no, I hate him. I don't hate him I don't know him. I just don't like the landing spot. I don't like the player. So I would disagree, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. Now I have 2 gimmies and then I have 2 non-gimmies here. 3 non-gimmies. I love Carnell Tate and I love Jordan Tyson. I love both the landing spots, but I feel like everyone does. So I'm going to skip those guys.
Jordan Tyson's landing spot.
I'm going to go and talk about Eli Stowers. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
Eli Stowers didn't land in the flashiest spot, I think, but he landed in one of the smartest long-term situations, probably in the draft. Philadelphia has been preparing, for life after Dallas Goedert for a while now, and Stowers is clearly the next man in line. I wasn't as high on him necessarily as a tight end going into the NFL, but as a receiver, I loved him. And I think the Eagles usually use these guys as receivers. So I love the fit. I think he's a modern tight end. He's athletic enough to move around the formation, physical enough to hold up the run game. Well, not always. It just depends. He whiffs on the run game a lot because he just needs to build more mass and strength. But I don't think they necessarily need him to be the bolster.
They definitely do not.
And they're not going to use him that way. But I think he's versatile enough to be, used in multiple personnel groupings as well. And, with, Dallas Goedert nearing the end of his run in Philly, I think, Stowers is going to get every opportunity to grow into a major role in this offense, maybe as soon as late this season or early 2027. He might not explode as a rookie, but this is a classic buy early before the breakout type of player. The Eagles love using tight ends. They love it. They love creating mismatches, and they love developing players behind established veterans. And that's exactly what the situation is. I think he's going to be one of the guys who quietly earns more snaps as the season goes on because, I think he's athletic enough as a receiver and he'll eventually become a legitimate fantasy factor by year 2. So
yeah, I agree, and he's a great dynasty stash if you're able to get him. Somebody who could really be dynamic, especially as he progresses into his career. So I have a handful of other ones. I don't know how many more you got.
I have 2 more, or I can do 4 more, but
okay.
Matter, so.
Well, the next one that I've got would be Oscar Delp, tight end for the Saints.
You love him, man.
I actually really like him as a prospect. I think he's a lot more athletic and a better runner than people give him credit for. But I think in a offense like New Orleans, they really need help at the tight end position. So I think somebody like an Oscar Delp may have a little bit of competition to start the year, maybe start as a tight end 2, but can eventually work his way into becoming the tight end 1 for that offense and become a really, really big red zone target for them. Somebody that can catch the ball and fight to push to get those first downs. And somebody that I think can really help that offense a lot and take some pressure off of the Chris Olaves and Jordan Tysons. So I really like what they're doing down in New Orleans. If they can somehow manage to build success for Tyler Shough, I think the sky's the limit for them next year. So
I don't hate it.
All right, cool. You want me to keep going?
I'll do one real quick.
Okay.
KC Concepcion. I love the situation. I think he probably landed in the best one as any rookie wide receiver in this draft class. You know, Cleveland didn't just need help at wideout. You know, they needed a full scale renovation. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy sucks. He can't catch a cold. He's so bad. Oh my gosh.
I feel bad for the
Cedric Tillman sucks. He's always injured. Can't catch a ball. They have nobody, man. And you know, this was
Isaiah Bond's okay, but I think
Isaiah Bond
would be a good
sucks.
wide receiver 3.
Isaiah Bond sucks. I don't know. Whatever. No, yeah. Just one of the least productive wide receiver rooms I've seen in a long time.
Yep.
And nothing about the depth chart suggested that they were suddenly going to fix that internally. And then obviously enter Concepcion to the Cleveland Browns. He's the type of receiver who can walk into a struggling offense and immediately give it structure. I think he's quick, he's sudden, he understands how to create space even when the coverage isn't doing him any favors. He started his career as a slot only guy, but as his time at Texas A&M showed, he can survive outside. He can, motion across the formation. He can handle more responsibility, than people expected. He even ran the ball at NC State a bunch. I mean, if you look at the competition in this receiver room, you got, Denzel Boston, another rookie outside, completely different kind of player. Then you got Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond, Malachi Corley, Gage Larvadan, Jamari Thrash. A lot of names and not a lot of proven production, maybe outside of Jeudy, but he's garbage. Yeah. Cleveland desperately needed somebody who can instantly and consistently separate and actually threaten defenses. KC Concepcion is that guy, I think. He's not a prototypical wide receiver 1 long-term, I think, but he doesn't have to be in this offense. He just has to be better than what they had, and that bar is very low.
Extremely low.
From a fantasy standpoint, the opportunity is absolutely massive. He could realistically lead the team in targets as a rookie simply because he's the one receiver on the roster who can, win quickly and give the quarterback easy answers. His long-term ceiling depends on what Cleveland does in the future off seasons, but for 2026, 2027, he's absolutely in the conversation as one of the most impactful rookies, especially rookie wideouts in this 2026 draft. I love the spot. I love the opportunity, and I love the player. Great pick.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that a lot of people had concerns about drops with him, but I literally texted you this morning about this.
Yeah,
I think over half of those are on the quarterback.
And the rest are concentration. It's him trying to catch the ball and run before he actually has it.
Or worry about getting a hit because the ball's lobbed to him while he's trying to wait under it because he already outran his coverage.
So when Taylor Green wins the job, easy.
We're golden then. We're golden. Oh man. All right.
You got another winner?
I do. I have a few more. But I will just pick 2.
Yeah.
So first one that I've got in this list, Chris Brazzell. I think that's a great landing spot for him. Talk about how there's a lot of opportunity behind Tet McMillan. There's literally wide open there. I know Jalen Coker is very loved by a lot of fantasy people. I'm not high on him, but I think you get a big body that can move like a Chris Brazzell in there to be that wide receiver 2 to complement Tet McMillan on the other side.
Yeah.
And he's got speed. Like, I think that's a really, really good pick for him, and opportunity should be knocking for him there too. And then the last one that I've got is actually Carson Beck. You talk about how he was your quarterback 2 on your big board heading into the draft. Somebody who went to a really good landing spot because he has the opportunity to play this year. He may not start week 1. He may not. I think he might, but he may not. But I think he could be a really good quarterback because he's got the weapons around him. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Trey McBride, you've got Jeremiah Love now. You've got all these supporting cast members around him. Michael Wilson, yes, who was a sleeper favorite last year, or waiver wire favorite last year. So, yeah, I think somebody like a Carson Beck, if he can come in and compete for that starting quarterback job, I think that it could be a really, really good sleeper quarterback for super flex leagues specifically this year.
I like that one, man. Yeah, he's my quarterback 2 for a reason. I think he's got great opportunity now too. It could be beautifully, so it could work beautifully. I can't talk today. All right, I will do my next player, Zachariah Branch, wide receiver, Atlanta Falcons. I think he's one of the players where the landing spot matters just as much as the talent. And Atlanta is, I think, the perfect match for what he brings to the table. Forget about the 40 time, forget about the way, the thing that makes Branch special is how often the quarterback wants to throw him the ball. He's earned targets at an elite rate in college. And that skill translates far more reliably than, straight line speed ever will. And he's one of the shiftiest players in this draft and has great hands. Some receivers get open, some receivers get noticed. Branch does both. Atlanta's depth chart gives him a real shot to carve out a major role early as well. Drake London is obviously the alpha, but the wide receiver 2 job is wide open. They have Jahan Dotson. He hasn't locked anything down, and Branch brings a completely different flavor. Short area quickness, instant separation, and the ability to turn a 5-yard throw into a 25-yard gain. This offense is built around timing and rhythm with Stefanski and Reese, and Branch fits that mold perfectly. I think he's the type of receiver who can rack up targets, early simply because he's always available. I don't know. In fantasy, I think availability is volume, and volume is gold. And I think he might be one of those players that might be just draft gold, come mid to late season. If Branch wins the wide receiver 2 job in Atlanta, I think there's a real chance he becomes a weekly flex option with, upside in a 10 team leagues. He's not just a gadget player. He's not just a speedy guy. I think he's a legitimate target earner, stepping into a situation where someone needs to step up behind London. This is, I think, one of the sneakiest, best landing spots in the entire draft. So,
yeah, I agree. And it's really good. And I think if that offense can figure out a way to get him the ball in open space real quick, real fast, he's going to make big plays out of it. He's twitchy and explosive. And so I like that pick a lot, actually. Yeah. All right. Shall we get into our next sponsor read?
Real quick. Honorable mention. I have Justin Jolly for the Broncos, tight end. Absolutely love him.
I have 2 honorable mentions if you want.
Go ahead. I'm not. That's all I'm saying is the name. So.
Gotcha. I got 2 running backs. Jonah Coleman for the Denver Broncos.
And let me guess, Nicholas Singleton. You love that.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll see how he heals up. I do like the opportunity as well. All right, let's do sports memorabilia, brother.
Yeah, let's do it.
Memorabilia. I need to slow down.
That is a hard word. Whether you are searching for a baseball autograph by your favorite World Series slugger, a signed football by an iconic Hall of Famer, or the jersey of a world-famous soccer star, you've come to the right place. Here at sportsmemorabilia.com, the world's leading source of authentic sports memorabilia, you'll find more than 500,000 authentic products from nearly every professional sports league, team, and players. Not only will you find your next prized sports possessions with ease, thanks to their superb customer service and tremendous site experience, you'll have the satisfaction and peace of mind that every product listed comes complete with a certificate of authenticity that is fully backed by the sportsmemorabilia.com lifetime authenticity guarantee. So go ahead, head over to sportsmemorabilia.com, and you get your collection started today. Again, that is sportsmemorabilia.com.
All right. Let's go into our NFL draft losers for
Let's
this, David.
do it.
All right.
I have a smaller list here, so we can breeze through these quickly if you want.
1, 2, 3, 4, but I can do whatever, so.
All right. So the first one that I've got, you're probably going to hate, but that would be Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, you're dumb.
Yeah, it might be. I love the talent. I love the prospect. I did not love the landing spot for two reasons.
He was landing spot proof.
The room is very, very full now. You've got a very, very crowded running back room.
They drafted him 3rd overall. They're not. No, he's the leader. What?
They're
paying him $50 million guaranteed.
Number
two sucks.
The coach has said multiple times this offseason that they want to do a running back by committee approach.
The coach is an idiot. Once they see Jeremiah Love on the field, it's over. It doesn't matter what that guy says.
We'll see. My only concern is that this brings his floor down lower than people thought it might be.
No.
And I'm not certain that he's going to demand the type of workload bell cow carry that everybody expected coming into this year.
Absolute nonsense. Do not listen to this fool. I'm just kidding. I'll shut up. I disagree. Absolutely disagree. And it's not because I have the first 101 pick in Dynasty this year and I'm taking him. It's not because of that. Okay, David?
I didn't say that.
Our listeners are thinking I'm annoying as hell right now. I need to chill out.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
All right. Well, who's your first failure, worst landing spot that you want?
All right. Number one, Jeremiah Love. No, yeah.
Hey, that was mine.
No. All right. In no particular order here. I have. I'll do this one. Number one, Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of the Jets, and I'm not lying here. This is true. Okay. As a worst landing spot. David had him as the best, so here we are. Kenyon Sadiq is one of the most polarizing prospects in this class. We all know this. Freaky athlete, rare movement skills, and the kind of physical profile that gets coaches excited. But none of that matters when you land an offense that can't support you. And right now, the Jets are exactly that, I think. This is an offense with too many mouths to feed right now and not nearly enough volume to go around. Garrett Wilson is going to dominate targets, guaranteed. Brace Hall going to command touches. The bigger issue, I think, is the quarterback situation. Geno Smith is a stopgap. He is not a long-term solution, and this offense hasn't shown the consistency or efficiency needed to support multiple fantasy relevant pass catchers. Sadiq might have weeks where he pops, of course. The athleticism says that. But the floor is going to be rough, and the ceiling is capped by usage, not by talent right now. Long term, maybe things change. Maybe the Jets find their quarterback in the future and rebuild the offense around their young weapons. But for 2026, Sadiq is I think stuck in a low volume, low efficiency passing game with no clear path of being a featured option just yet. So.
To each their own. When he catches 10 touchdown passes this upcoming year,
over Garrett Wilson, my ass. I'll cry.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Right.
My next player that I did not like the landing spot from, you might hate this one as well, but Carnell Tate. And I might be the only person that says this
in the world,
but that's okay with me. I love the prospect. Carnell Tate's very talented, very good receiver, very sure hands. He's really good at running routes, but I'm worried about that offense. I think Cam Ward might struggle in year 2. I'm worried that offensive line may not give Carnell Tate enough time to run routes cleanly and efficiently. And I'm worried that room is just too crowded for him. I'm worried that Cam Ward may not target him as a true wide receiver 1, and he may not get the volume or target share that he should deserve as an actual wide receiver 1. So I'm a little concerned going into it. I will be open to it, and I will gladly be proven wrong. But I do think that the large wide receiver room with a lot of talent in it is going to lead to a lack of targets that he should demand as a wide receiver.
You're saying Calvin Ridley and Alec Ailminer are the
Wandale Robinson,
garbage, a wide receiver 3 who had one good year. Carnell Tate, I think, is stepping into one of the cleanest fantasy meets opportunity situations in the entire draft. Okay. The Titans passing game was starving for someone who could consistently separate, who could win outside and actually finish plays. The receivers last year struggled to get open, struggled to catch the ball, and struggled to make anything happen after the catch, and struggled with injuries. And Tate fixes all of that. He's a polished outside receiver with real downhill ability, strong ball skills, and the type of competitive toughness that shows up snap after snap. And I think he's running into an offense, that is going to push the ball vertically with Cam Ward, and who loves to attack deep and isn't afraid to give his receivers chances. I think opportunities are endless here, and that's all you want in fantasy football. And I love the opportunity. I think the volume is going to be incredible there. I don't think Calvin Ridley is a factor, and I think Tate steps in immediately as a wide receiver 1. Sorry.
No, you're good. I just disagree. I don't think the volume's going to be there because Cam Ward likes to spread it around and not necessarily hone in and target one specific player.
But hopefully he doesn't have to. I think he'll get volume. I think he has the talent, and I think the scheme as well is all going to be working in his favor. I think he's absolutely going to be the first read regardless. Regardless than I think a lot more people realize, and I think he's got legitimate wide receiver 2 upside in starting him immediately in fantasy value. So. But we'll see.
We will see. This will be.
You don't draft to do 4th overall because Alec Aomanor is on the teams.
I like Aomanor. I like Wan'Dale Robinson a lot too. I also like Carnell Tate. I just like them all. That's why I'm worried. So we'll see.
Different levels here, brother. Way different levels. But okay, right. Give me. I'll go real quick. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll do one I don't like. Running back. Jonah Coleman, Denver Broncos. You like it. I don't like it. It's so funny. We are just
this is great.
Opposite here. I think Coleman, he was my running back 2 coming into the draft. I loved him a lot. Okay. But he's a player who's walking into one of the messiest backfields in the entire league. Denver already had a complicated committee with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, their last year second round pick. 2 backs who both needed specific roles to be fantasy relevant. And now adding Jonah Coleman doesn't clarify anything. I think it makes everything worse. Coleman is talented enough to earn touches, of course, but I don't think he's necessarily talented enough to take over that backfield, especially anytime soon. And in a Sean Payton offense, that means he's going to have, be stuck in a role that changes week to week. And I don't like that. Some games he'll get 10 carries, some games he'll get 2, and some games he'll absolutely disappear entirely. And for fantasy managers, that's a nightmare. Nothing I want to be attached to. I think this backfield was already volatile. Coleman, turns into a full blown committee with no predictable usage and no clear hierarchy on this team. He's the kind of player who might have a couple spike weeks, but you'll never know when to start him, and that terrifies me in fantasy football. And almost impossible to trust. He goes from my running back 2 to somebody I'm probably not going to target at all. So
interesting. Okay, I think I still like him, but we'll see what happens. The next player that I have that I really hated their landing spot for would be Jeremy Bernard. The wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can literally just make my case by just saying Pittsburgh sucks and just stop there. But there's so many questions for this team and this offense specifically moving forward. And for Jeremy Bernard to find opportunity to actually play. He's crowded in the wide receiver room, down on the depth chart, might be wide receiver 4 right now, and is capped out at being wide receiver 3. And unless there's an injury, that's the highest he can get on the depth chart. And so I'm not certain that he's going to find any fantasy relevancy in year 1, maybe not even in year 2. And is going to be somebody that's just not going to be fantasy relevant maybe in his whole career. The quarterback room there is also really questionable at best. Is Aaron Rodgers coming back? Is it going to be a competition between Will Howard and Drew Aller? If that's the case, you're going to have a lot of growing pains, and somebody like a Jeremy Bernard may not ever really get targeted at all this season. And so I hate that landing spot for him. I thought he could go to a team that might need a wide receiver 2 and become a wide receiver 2, but that's not happening now for him. So
yeah, he's no Mekhi Lemon. So. What idiots.
What idiots.
All right, I'm going to do another one real quick. What is this? A NFL draft loser. This is what this is. Omar Cooper Jr. For the New York Jets. I have him as a loser. Although I personally think Omar Cooper Jr. is very overrated. I do think he's a fun player to watch. He's explosive after the catch, slippery in space, and dangerous when he gets the ball on the move. But none of that matters if you land an offense where you're the third or fourth option from day one, I think. And I think that's what happened. I mean, Garrett Wilson is obviously the unquestioned alpha in that receiver room. They just drafted Kenyon Sadiq, who is going to command some touches. Breece Hall is going to get fed, especially in the passing game. And the Jets' passing volume simply isn't high enough to support another consistent fantasy option, in my opinion. I think Cooper is going to have to live off efficiency, not volume, and that's a tough way to survive as a rookie, especially in fantasy. I mean, he'll get scheme touches, he'll get opportunities in the slot, but the ceiling is capped until the Jets overhaul their quarterback situation and stabilize that offense. In Dynasty, I think you can trust yourself into a long-term upside, but in redraft, he's a wide receiver 4 who needs injuries or massive offensive leap to matter. Not to mention, A.D. Mitchell they traded for. There's other guys in that room. Yeah. Obviously, they drafted him in the first round, so they have any intentions. But it's still, regardless, the fourth option on a bad team. That's not what I want. So.
Yeah,
and I would not be drafting him high in rookie leagues, regardless.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, late round 2, I think would make sense.
He'll go first round because some knucklehead likes him, but
yeah, I think the only way I can see him being fantasy relevant, because I agree with you, I thought he was a loser as well, for landing spots. But I think the only way he can be fantasy relevant is if there's injuries to both Sadiq and Garrett Wilson. Yeah, and then he's just going to be a monster for receiving catches. And so that, like, the only league that I would actually target him in would be a best ball league where you've already got like 4 or 5 wide receivers that are studs, and then you're just taking him as your last pick in the draft.
But I mean, if Garrett Wilson and Sadiq are gone, then defenses know that's only Hall and Omar Cooper on the team.
True.
I mean,
and then that hurts them too. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe best ball, but rookie drafts, I'm staying away from him. I wouldn't draft him in the 3rd round, and that was before his landing spot. So you know how I feel about the dude. All right, my last one, real quick. I have Mike Washington Jr., the running back for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Not the Oakland Raiders.
No, sir. No, they are not in Oakland. I actually thought I said it wrong there for a second. I was like, what the heck?
I'm making fun of
myself. Mike Washington Jr. is one of the, those backs who had talent, had the talent to walk into the league and eventually take over a backfield. I think, he's explosive enough to win outside, tough enough to run between the tackles, and athletic enough to be a problem if coaching staff built an offense around him. But that's not going to happen in Las Vegas. It's not. The Raiders already made their long-term commitment at running back last year when they spent a premium capital on Ashton Jeanty. He's the centerpiece of their offense, the engine of the run game, and the guy who they're going to feed until the wheels fall off. Washington isn't walking into a competition. He's walking into a supporting role, and I don't like that. And in real football, that's fine, sure. Vegas now has probably one of the best 1-2 punches in the AFC, but in fantasy, that's a death sentence. Washington becomes the kind of player who looks great on film. I think, pops on limited touches and still gives you nothing that you can trust week to week. He'll have his moments, he'll have flashes, and but unless Jeanty misses time, I think Washington is stuck, in the, break the glass in case of emergency tier of fantasy running backs. It's a brutal landing spot for a player who had probably RB2, upside in the right situation. It's gone now. So
yeah. No, I would agree with that. And for as much as the coach wants to say that there's going to be a committee there, I'm not buying it. No. So, all right, I got one more, and then I have some honorable mentions. So my last guy that I have for the worst landing spot would be Ty Simpson. I feel like a lot of people are hyping him up for his dynasty potential in years to come, but in my mind, I'm not really buying it. I don't see him ever gaining the trust of the coaching staff to actually become a franchise quarterback, which is where he was drafted at. Mm-hmm. I think that he's never going to live up to those expectations. I don't think he's ever going to live up to the filling the shoes of a Matt Stafford that maybe the front office wants him to. And I worry that people are going to be lulled into drafting him high in dynasty leagues because of where he was drafted at in the first round and not necessarily take into consideration that this might not actually work out for him. So I'm not personally buying it. I don't like the landing spot. I would have rather have seen him go to a spot where maybe the team's not good and they're searching for a quarterback, and maybe late in the season he can finally get some playing time to actually develop and grow. And I don't think that that's ever going to happen for him at the Rams. And I think that because of that, he's not ever going to be able to develop into a starting caliber quarterback. So I'm not buying it for redraft, dynasty, anything. I just don't like the spot at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to waste your pick, I mean, the only way I could possibly see it is Superflex, but even then, like, I don't know.
If it's a dynasty Superflex, sure, but
stash under taxi for 3 years, but that's a pick that you're not going to use for 3 years in hopes that he possibly is the guy. I don't know. I necessarily want to do it. So, all right, let's get into the W energy drinks, brother. Tell me about W.
Do it. So W energy drinks. Are you looking for an energy drink that does not crash your day? Well, Master, I'm here to talk to you about W energy drinks.
Let me hear it.
Energy, bold flavors, no jitter, no crash. Helps you lock in and stay focused. See why people won't shut up about W at W.GG. There are over 15 flavors to choose from.
15?
So be sure to use, 15.
Wow.
So be sure to use a promo code InsideEdge10 to save 10% on your order today. Again, that is InsideEdge10 to save 10% today. Inside Edge with 2 E's, 10 to save 10% today.
Yep, the W.GG is a legitimate link too, by the way.
Yeah, so don't get confused. All right, so here comes my favorite part of this podcast where we get to break down some fantasy moves that are going to be impactful for you going into next season. And so I wanted to ask these to help kind of gain some perspective for players or for managers who might have these players on their team. Okay. So, Moss, I'm going to go rapid fire here to ask you these questions as we close up this pod. But we'll start with A.J. Brown. What do you make of A.J. Brown? There's been rumors floating around that he's going to be dealt come June, and he's going to go to New England and be the wide receiver 1 there. If that doesn't happen, what do you make of him? How does them drafting Makai Lemon impact him?
I mean, at this point, it feels like the A.J. Brown situation isn't a mystery anymore, You know, it's a countdown. Everything the Eagles have done over the last few months, points in one direction. They're obviously preparing to move on from him, and they're preparing to do it after June 1st. And I mean, the writing has been on the wall since, draft night for sure. Philadelphia doesn't spend a first-round pick. That. Well, for sure. It was guaranteed. During the first round, they don't spend a first round pick on Makai Lemon unless they, already know where this is headed. Lemon isn't a developmental flyer; he's a depth piece, or not a depth piece either. He's the type of receiver you draft when you're about to open up a massive chunk of targets and need somebody ready to step in for that role immediately. So I expect him to go to the Patriots. Maybe another team tries to swoop in, but his relationship, A.J. Brown's relationship with Mike Vrabel, when they were both together at Tennessee, is very strong. He played his best football under Mike Vrabel as well. The Patriots desperately need a true wide receiver 1, and they have the future draft capital to make a deal work without blowing up their team to a rebuild. Everything lines up, the relationship, the need and the timeline, even the compensation structure. So I think it's going to happen. So
okay. Yeah. So do you like A.J. Brown then if he's on the New England Patriots?
I don't like A.J. Brown ever. But as a wide receiver 1 where he demands the targets, has a coach that understands him, and already has a bond, sure, why not? I mean, Drake May needs a wide receiver 1, and that team was in the Super Bowl last year. Yeah. So and they had Stephon Diggs, who had a pleasantly surprising good year last year, but nonetheless, I think A.J. Brown could fit very, very well in that offense.
Yeah, I would agree. If he is dealt to New England, I think that's a great move for him and for that offense. The only concern that I have for fantasy managers that have A.J. Brown right now would be that this could sour and turn into a position that's very similar to the wide receiver from the San Francisco 49ers. I forget his name. Brandon Ayuk. Yes. Oh. And so that would be my only concern. He just is somebody who's disgruntled, not going to get moved, not going to get cut, and is just kind of stuck in limbo. Maybe I'm wrong, and that won't happen, and he's going to have a great career next year in New England, and everybody's going to be happy.
I haven't questioned the contracts, but I feel like A.J. Brown's contract is worth a lot more than what Ayuk's was when that decision was made. So,
yep, I think it is. Yeah. All right, well, let me jump into this next question then. And this one is all about the Cleveland wide receivers. So we're both fans. We both love both of the picks. Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, 2 of our, I think, both top 5 wide receivers in this last draft. And so I want to break this down per style of fantasy. So if your league is a dynasty league, which wide receiver would you value more, Boston or Casey Concepcion?
I'm going Concepcion in a dynasty league. I think if I'm thinking long term, I lean Casey. I think he's the type of receiver who naturally earns volume. Like I said, quick separation, sharp routes, the ability to work the areas of the field where quarterbacks feel safest. That kind of profile ages well in the NFL. I think it translates early and it keeps you relevant even when the offense changes around you. Boston absolutely has the upside to become a big play, outside threat in this Cleveland Browns offense. If he hits a ceiling, he could, be a touchdown scorer in this group. But, Casey's path to steady targets is clear to me. And in Dynasty, that matters more than chasing the occasional home run. So I'm picking Casey here. So.
Gotcha. All right. I think I'm leaning towards Casey too, but I'm also feeling torn because, as you know, in our Dynasty League, I have like the 107 pick. Mm-hmm. Both of them might be available to select. So this will be interesting for me to see how I navigate it. For redraft leagues, who would you target? I'm assuming it's probably Casey, but who would you target?
Are you asking these questions just so you can figure out who to draft in our Dynasty League, David?
I would never
I swear to goodness.
If I wanted to do that, I would have texted you.
He's like, Ryan is a genius. So let's just pretend this is a question for podcast, but really I have ulterior motives. I see. I picked Boston. No, I picked Jerry Jeudy. No. All right. You said for what? Redraft, you said?
For redraft, yeah.
I'm going Casey again. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
a lot of the same reasons. Yeah.
For this season specifically, Casey is the one I want. I mean, like I said, he's going to be involved right away and going to run the routes that keep the offense on schedule. He's going to be the guy who shows up in short and intermediate areas where Cleveland desperately needs reliability. So desperately needs reliability. So yeah.
You said that good. Yeah.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah. And then for best ball leagues, who would you target, Casey or Denzel?
This one is the coin flip for me. Okay. I think this is where both guys become more interesting. Boston is built for spike weeks. He's the type of receiver who can give you 3 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns out of nowhere, and that's exactly what you want in best ball, volatility with upside, I would say. Excuse me. Casey gives you the steady chain moving production that still plays in this format. I'd say 6 catches for 70 plus yards and a score. That's a best ball starter every time. Both guys are going late. Both guys are, can help you, and both guys, fit the format in different ways. I think Boston for fireworks, Casey for steady points, but either guy would be good for best ball.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm leaning more towards Boston for best ball just because of the touchdown. Yeah, specifically. There could be a week he could catch 2 to 3 touchdowns and just blow up and be the wide receiver 1 that week. And then
we'll see. Browns can't score a damn touchdown to save their lives, so we'll see.
That might be true too. But I think for best ball specifically, I think Denzel Boston might be a little bit more of a better target for value-wise because you can get him later on than you could Casey Concepcion. And so I think
you'll get both late regardless. They're rookies.
So. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right. So my next question. This is really important, I think, for fantasy football because there's a lot of second-year QBs who might be fantasy relevant and people either in dynasty, redraft leagues, heading into the year thinking, okay, how do I navigate this as an owner of one of these second-year quarterbacks? Okay. Who do you think is most set up for success heading into year 2? Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, Shedeur Sanders, and I threw in a bonus one, Will Howard. Who do you think is most set up for success?
I personally think Cam Ward is. I think he's the only quarterback in this group who's, team made a massive commitment to building around him. Tennessee just didn't add a receiver. They added a potential franchise-changing weapon in Carnell Tate at 4th overall pick. Yeah, I know you're not necessarily as high as the landing spot as I am, but I am. And I think that's a statement. Cam Ward spent his rookie year throwing to one of the weakest receiving groups in football. I know you said it's crowded, but it's crowded full of a bunch of bums. Now he gets a polished outside separator who fits his aggressive downhill style perfectly. Tate wins with, wins on the perimeter. He wins in contested situations and gives Ward the type of target who can, bail him out when plays break down. I think this is the kind of investment teams make when they believe in their quarterback. I truly do believe that. So I think he's probably set up better than anyone else in this class. I think Jackson Dart would be a strong runner-up. Obviously, you know, he walks into one of the most stable situations, I think, as for any young quarterback in the NFL. He already has his true wide receiver one in Malik Nabers. Obviously, we will have concerns with him until he shows that he's going to be fully healthy. But you know, he got to sit behind Russell Wilson and develop a little bit, and now he's ready to go. I think the Giants have built an offense that, you know, actually fits what he does well, not to mention Cam Scatterboo, Malachi Fields. I think it will be a great wide receiver too. I think he's got some good potential here. Tyler Shough would be my third. I won't go over him too much. Shedeur Sanders would be my fourth, just because that it's a quarterback situation. We'll figure out who's going to win between him, Deshaun Watson, and Taylor Green, and obviously Mary Kay Cabbage from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. You came out today and said that she pretty much came out saying without saying that Deshaun Watson is going to be the starter, which I warned Browns fans for months now that he's going to get an opportunity, and the old Deshaun Watson, the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson, fits Todd Monken's system perfectly. So we'll see what happens there. But and then I had Will Howard last. I actually love Will Howard. I know you do, yeah. I have an affinity for him. I still think he has great opportunity here. I mean, he won the award for best player in the preseason last year until he then the season came and he basically medical redshirted with the shoulder injury and Aaron Rodgers. But now he's coming back. We don't know about what happens with Aaron Rodgers. Even if Aaron Rodgers comes back for another season for Pittsburgh, Drew Aller, a lot of people think he's the future. I don't know, man. I think it was a reach. I think Will Howard has every opportunity here to take that job. They are both very similar in stature, both very similar quarterbacks, and we'll see what happens here. But yeah, I would go Cam Ward first, Jackson Dart second, Tyler Shough third. I do love Shough's situation here. Sanders fourth, and Will Howard fifth as it stands right now.
Okay, interesting. I probably would have gone Tyler Shough first, honestly. I feel like they've definitely helped him out in getting him some more weapons. Yes. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with the Cam Ward and Jackson Dart. So
I love the three receivers they grabbed. I love Barry and Brown. Woo, baby! I can't wait to see him on the Saints.
All right, so we got two more questions for you. This one might be more specific to redrafts and best ball leagues, but which Raiders stack would you prefer to have? Fernando Mendoza and Brock Bowers, or Fernando Mendoza and Ashton Jeanty?
Are you drafting Mendoza? Is this why you're asking me?
No, I'm not drafting Fernando Mendoza.
So you said Bowers and Mendoza?
Hold on. Why would I ask this question if I have both Bowers and Jeanty?
Because you're going to trade me Bowers.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's going to happen. All right, so you said Jeanty and Mendoza or Bowers Mendoza, right?
Yes.
I'd probably, obviously lean Bowers and Mendoza. And I don't think it's particularly close, probably. Okay. Mendoza's profile pushes you towards stacking with a pass catcher, not a runner. I think you and I have already established Mendoza's a rhythm and timing distributor. We talked about him enough. With limited arm talent and very limited rushing ability as well, or upside. He can rush, but he's not a runner. That means that his fantasy value comes from volume and efficiency, not necessarily explosive plays. He needs easy completions, defined reads, and yard after catch creators. I think his ceiling rises only if his pass catchers produce. A tight end like Brock Bowers directly amplifies his Mendoza's fantasy output immediately. I don't think necessarily a running back does immediately. I think Bowers is the cleanest fantasy correlation piece that he has. High percentage targets, red zone involvement, yard after catch upside, a rookie QB friendly safety blanket. And not to mention, he's one of the best in the league to do it. If Mendoza hits at all, Bowers is almost certainly part of the reason. I think that's the definition of a positive correlation stack, in my opinion. Jeanty and Mendoza, I think, is anti-correlated. Jeanty is a volume driven dual threat back. His best fantasy weeks come from heavy rushing volume, goal line work, controlling game script. Those weeks often come at the expense of Mendoza's passing volume. You're essentially betting on two different game strips here, and I don't think that's what you want in a stack. So
that's fair. Yeah, I think I would lean more Bowers too, but I do think Genty could be a good check down target for Mendoza since there is no really wide receiver threat.
Sure.
So
yeah, I just think that's going to be Bowers more often than not. So
yeah, that's fair. All right. So my last question, we already talked about this a little bit, so we don't have to elaborate too much, but do you think Ty Simpson is a valuable dynasty target in rookie dynasty drafts?
It just depends on the price of him. I'm not treating him like an immediate contributor, obviously. I'm treating him like a long-term lottery ticket who sits on my taxi squad for 3 seasons, maybe. The Rams clearly drafted him with the idea that he'll sit behind Stafford, learn the system, and eventually, get his shot when Stafford walks away from the game. It's the same blueprint that Green Bay has, used with Favre to Rodgers, from Rodgers to Love. And that part makes sense to me. Because of that timeline, his value is completely price dependent, though, in my opinion. In a normal 1 QB rookie draft, I'm not interested in him unless he slides in the 4th round, at least 5th round. In Superflex, he naturally goes earlier because the position is inflated. But even then, I don't know.
I as I said earlier, the only league that I would ever consider drafting him in is a dynasty Superflex. Otherwise, I think you're just kind of wasting a draft pick. And if your rookie draft has like 5 to 6 rounds in it, okay, maybe spend a 4th or a 5th round pick on him. But I think anything else above that is just a reach, and you're just kind of really gambling. So
yeah, if I miss on him, I'm not sweating it at all. The 2027 quarterback class is loaded with guys who will start right away, and I'd rather invest in players with a faster path to the field. Personally, especially with higher upside in general, I'm not high on Ty Simpson, especially in the 1st round in the NFL draft. So whatever, man.
To each their own, I guess. All right. Well, that will wrap up our first post-draft pod. Thank you all so much for sitting along with us and listening in and providing some good insight and questions for us. I appreciate everybody who comes to listen to us every week. Thank you guys so much. If you're not, please follow us on social media. We're on X, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We're pretty much everywhere where you are. So please go give us a follow. Give us a like and subscribe to us on our podcast apps. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, literally everywhere. So go give us a follow, give us a 5-star review, turn on automatic downloads, because we just want to be where you are to help you win your fantasy leagues next year.
Yes. Again, a huge thank you to Monster Moments Photography. Monster Moments Photography is a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland, owned and operated by myself, Ryan, and Hallie Mosser, my wife. For the past 10 years, we've captured more than 100 weddings across Northeast Ohio and beyond, always working together as a true two-person team. Our style centers around authentic emotional storytelling, documenting the real moments between two people in love, and created images that feel natural, comfortable, and true to the couple. Rooted in Northern Ohio, but inspired by our travels, Ryan and Hallie bring I cannot talk. Oh my gosh. Bring a warm, personal approach to every wedding day. Their work blends experience, consistency, and genuine passion for helping couples relive their best day through timeless photography. Learn more at monstermomentsphotography.com. That's MOSSOR momentsphotography.com. I went 1st and 3rd person there. I don't know what's going on, but
hey, just go to MOSSOR momentsphotography.com because they are great at what they do for taking wedding photos. I used them for my wedding, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. Before we wrap up tonight, I want to hit this one more time. I think if you've already voted for my 4-year-old son James in the Ranger Rick Junior Ranger competition, thank you. It truly means a lot to us. Tonight is a massive, all votes are free and every single vote counts as double. I forgot this is a recorded podcast, but nonetheless, hopefully James is in the top 5. Even the donated ones are double, so that's really cool. Please just scan this QR code right here. Hopefully tomorrow morning we'll wake up and he'll be in the top 5. He is 3rd right now, and that's really awesome. If you haven't voted yet, or if you're willing to throw in another one, head over to my Twitter page at DynastyCLE, or like I said, scan this QR code on the screen at DynastyCLE on Twitter. I will retweet the video, and it is pinned with the link on my video. It just takes a second. It's completely free, and we would greatly appreciate it. So please vote for James. Go to my Twitter at DynastyCLE. All right, guys. And that is going to do it for tonight's show, episode 10 of season 2. I think this is episode 4 overall, which is awesome. Crazy. We're moving through it. And honestly, what a night it was tonight, man. Our first ever NFL draft special, is through the Commissioner's Couch last week. And now we finally have been breaking down these prospects, and we finally have their landing spots. Man, I'm so grateful, so excited. 912 viewers for our draft show, guys. Obviously this is pre-recorded. Hopefully we get a ton this show, but nonetheless, there's nowhere to go but up, and I'm so grateful for every single one of you guys. Thank you truly for hanging out with us for that. Thank you truly for hanging out with us tonight, guys. We have a lot more in store for you. Next week, we're going to do a what mock draft is this, David?
Rookie Dynasty mock draft.
Yes, we're going to do a 10-team rookie Dynasty mock draft. David and I just go pick for pick and break down. And then we're going to talk about some, maybe some veterans from teams that were affected by the NFL draft positively and negatively. You're not going to want to miss it at all. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we are just going to continue to just rack up these awesome shows all the way through the NFL season. I'm exhausted. I need to get off this podcast, David. For David Cahoon, follow him at DavidCahoon24 on Twitter. I am Ryan Mosser. You can find me at DynastyCLE on Twitter. This has been the Commissioner's Couch Fantasy Football Podcast. We will see you next week. Rest up, stay sharp, and enjoy some fantasy, guys. We're excited. And good luck.
See you guys next week.
Let's get out of here.